Neeves Knives, I'm Jared, and today we are talking about what I carry for self-defense as a felon. Now, shout out to Scab. He's the one who tagged me for this video. He's the one who created the idea. The idea of what do you carry for self-defense, and he did tag me in it. So definitely go and check out his video because he's got a great perspective, and I think he's a good person to listen to a perspective from. Now, the offender, this is the Neeves Knife Co. offender. We just dropped it. As far as when I'm filming this, it is still available. So if you do want to get some or get one, definitely go and check it out. It's an absolute badass knife. And yeah, I do have a full review, and then a bunch of other content creators also have full reviews if you want to go and check those out as well. Now, next, or just to get into it, right? I want to go through a couple things. I wrote down a couple bullet points because before we get into like the actual self-defense tools, I think there's other little areas to consider because of the situation you might get into, right? Like one thing, shoes, right? What are your shoes like? What are the bottom of the tread like? And you know, like whether or not they're slippery on certain conditions. Like I personally, I bought a pair of Chelsea's, right? And Chelsea's are basically like a slip-on boot. Now they come with tread, or, you know, you can get like, there's different types of, you know, bottoms you can get. And mine came, and I wish I wouldn't have ordered these ones. Now I want to order a different pair because I love the boot, but they're slippery. They're way too slippery. It would be a nightmare if I got into a fight with one of those things if I wasn't on carpet. So if I was on any sort of flat ground or gravel or anything like that, marble, anything like that, it's going to be a nightmare. So shoes, I think, is very important to consider. I always wore boots. I grew up wearing boots, grew up in construction wearing boots. So I'm very comfortable with boots. I've gotten into a lot of fights in boots. But shoes are also, you know, really good. You know, obviously you're going to be faster on your feet with them and stuff like that, easier to bounce around. Boots have their advantage too, but, you know, obviously just pick something that, or wear shoes that are going to be reliable in crazy situations or potentially. Next thing is just your endurance, man. Your endurance, your health, your ability to move, your ability to do all that, because so many people think they're tough until when push comes to shove and it gets crazy. And now your heart rate's going through the roof, your adrenaline spiked, you're shaking, all these things are happening, and you know, you have to maintain stamina. So, you know, that having stamina, having the ability to move fast, you know, it's like when was the last time most of us ran, right? Like when was the last time most of us jumped or lifted something heavy very quickly, right? Like all these things you want to consider. That's why it's good to work out. It's good to stay healthy. Shout out to Scab. I know he's been doing a lot of working out and losing a lot of weight, and man, the guy looks great. Shout out to him, man. Another thing, awareness, situational awareness. This is huge, man. Knowing your surroundings and even just like the rooms you're in, where the doors are, where the threat would come from, the people you're around, the neighborhood you're in, what you're wearing, what you're driving, all those things are really important to pay attention to. And another thing I want to preface is that if somebody's potentially going to rob you, they typically are looking for an easy target, right? They're typically looking for somebody who's not aware. So you don't have the say-so of when something happens. They do, right? So if you are aware of your surroundings and you look like a hard target, you, in many cases, are not going to, you know, catch that, right? So it's good to be aware, you know, in your situation or wherever you're at, to be paying attention. And in many cases, that will deflect a lot of problems because the surprise is gone, right? If I can't get you on a surprise, then it does hurt the situation quite a bit, right? So those things are also, I think, and then also you just, you know, some of the areas you're in, you know, and the people you're around and everything, you know, paying attention to the way somebody's moving, the way somebody's looking, you know, including yourself. You know, what do you look like? Do you look like a mark? Because, you know, that'll get you caught up, especially in certain areas. So I want to say this, laws are going to be different for every state. I am not your lawyer, so this is not any sort of, legal advice or anything like that. Check your state's laws and so on. As a felon, you, depending on what your case was and what your charge was, specifically to me, I can't get my gun rights back for 20 years after I'm off paper. So not from when I got my felony, but from when I got off paper, 20 years, which is a very long time. Of course, I don't agree with it. Of course, I think if you're going to be legally allowed to be in society and be able to do everything else in society and be trusted, I think you should be able to be trusted to defend yourself, your family, and your freedoms. But, that doesn't mean you don't have nothing, right? Just because you're a felon doesn't mean you don't have nothing. So for an example, firearms. Let's talk about firearms. Most felons can't have firearms, but you can have a black powdered firearm. Now, black powdered, I'm going to give you the problems with it. Now, the upsides are very powerful, very, very powerful. They do make revolvers, which are 6-shooters. However, the problem with that is that you don't want to carry with 6 rounds because you don't want to leave your hammer on one of the primers or one of the rounds. You want to make sure that you leave one chamber open in the cylinder so that if the hammer did get hit for whatever reason, it doesn't shoot. So you get 5 shots. Now, some people I've heard, keep a primer out, that is one way. So you have the thing loaded and you just have to shove a primer into that one spot. But anyways, the point is that you're very limited on shots because you're not going to be able to reload that in a fight. And with rifles and stuff, typically they are single shot. There might be some revolving rifles, but you're very limited in ammunition. And like I said, it's going to be impossible to reload. Now, I will say this though, watching active self-protection. This is a channel, shout out to Active Self-Protection. Definitely go and check them out. They basically show self-defense situations all over the world. And they've got thousands of videos, thousands of altercations. And the guy who runs the show said that he's only ever seen a reload once. Out of all the situations, one reload, because typically things go fast. And when they go fast, they're over pretty quickly too. While it might feel like eternity when you're in the situation, in reality, they're very fast. So, so it might not be a big deal that you can't reload it fast, but I will say this, the smoke is a factor. So yes, there's smokeless powder, but even smokeless powder, it's not no smoke, it's smokeless. So when you shoot a black powdered gun, you get a ton of smoke, and that can blind your view. And in some situations, you might need to see not only the target, but what's behind the target and whatever. So black powdered guns, while they will work and while you can carry them, they're not the most practical. However, what I do think is very practical is air-powered guns. So air-powered guns, they are extremely powerful now. They have went to a level of which they are very, very lethal. So there's different levels, right? They have pistols, rifles, shotguns. They even have like big bore rifles. They have everything, fully automatic, semi-automatic, and anybody can carry them. And this is not like a little pellet gun. Put it this way. In order to kill somebody, you need 80 joules, basically. 80 joules is like a guaranteed kill. Between 60 and 80 is like less lethal. So like under 80 to 60, which they do have a pistol, which I do have, which is less lethal. Technically it could be lethal, but it has to be like a perfect shot, perfect everything. But 80 and up is 100% lethal. They have some over 200 joules. Like we're talking about guns that you can hunt with past 300-400 yards. Now, one that I'm really wanting to get, I recently got the Pistelli 68 cal. Came with a suppressor, red dot, laser, and light. It's pretty awesome, but you're limited to one magazine because it is just a regular CO2 air. So basically, it's a very powerful, each shot is very powerful, but you're only going to get 6 to 9 shots. One thing I do like about the Pistelli is that I can leave it loaded and stored for years without having to worry, because the air cartridge is a CO2 that's sealed. So when I'm ready, I just twist this on, and then if something happens and I had to, if I had to spring into action, I can just smack the back of it, just like doing a mag, a mag tap. Just smack it, and then the air will ignite in there, and I can start firing. So I like that ability to leave it loaded, leave it stored safely. Now, the issue I have is that, well, a couple issues. One, because it's a high-powered pistol using this little CO2, you only get 6 to 9 shots. Like if this was, well, you can get 9 shots, but a mag only holds 6. So if, this was a pellet gun, you get like 50 shots out of it, out of that little CO2. But because it's high-powered, you're only limited to those, 9 shots. And I do wish, honestly, that it was just a little bit more powerful. Now, granted, like we were just saying, most people don't ever get a chance to reload anyways. So that is a decent tool you could have maybe in your car or at the house or whatever. But the BinTech 45 is the one that I'm really wanting next. The BinTech comes in 9mm and then a bunch of other calibers, but I want the 45. The BinTech 45 it's basically a home defense gun. It has 2 air tanks on it, so you have lots of shots. You have the opportunity to reload, and it is semi-auto. I think they have fully auto versions of that, but either way, they have fully auto versions of other ones. I want the semi-auto. The fully auto, just dumping that many rounds, it's just not practical. You're just basically losing all your ammo. But one cool thing about these is that they are deadly accurate. They're so accurate, and the shots are so powerful. Way more affordable to shoot than bullets.
I'm going to be firing 6 of these 50 caliber round balls with 1 shot. This is a double barrel air gun called the AEA Harpoon. It's powered by these 5,000 PSI cartridges, which are reusable and actually resemble a 12-gauge shotgun shell. I modified the design of my sabot a little bit to allow it to open up easier and release these 3 50 cal round balls. Both barrels with 1 shot. That's it.
And yeah, they're just really, really awesome. Now they are heavy, so that is one downside. But to have a firearm in your vehicle or for home defense, I think the BinTech 45 is absolutely perfect for felons, because you're in the fight with anybody else that has a firearm for sure. And then, like I said, there's tons of other ones. And very, very powerful. I watched the BinTech, I think it was the 9, which is less powerful than the 45, went through and through a ballistics gel, I think 26 inches or something like that. For like a self-defense bullet, they say you want to go between 8 and 12 inches in order for it not to go through and through and then hit somebody behind them or go through the wall and hit your kid, in a home defense situation. So that just shows you how powerful it is. Just saying. And like I said, hunting out to 300-400 yards, that's obviously powerful.
Well, almost. It is right around 4,300 PSI of a max of 4,500 PSI. It's pretty full enough for me. Let's get some numbers.
Before we get into the other self-defense tools, because I'm supposed to list 3, but I want to go over some things I do and don't agree with. One, and I agree with Scab on this, brass knuckles. Brass knuckles. Well, I love brass knuckles, and I do think that they are cool to have. And I do think there are situations where they can be good. I wouldn't recommend them for most because of the legality. Most places, man, they're just illegal. Of course, there are some places you can carry them. Now, there are some ways around the legality of having knuckles by getting a multi-tool one. There's kinds that can be used for certain things, but if you got taken out of your pocket or out of your vehicle, it's a multi-tool, like Bone Tactical. He makes something like that. Now, this is from Riat. So this is, this definitely has a big gray area because of the blade. But again, it has that attitude adjuster right there. And it is technically a knife, not a set of brass knuckles or a set of knuckle dusters. Has an an attitude adjuster right there. But with the blade, I'm not sure how this would be. I guess that would be just depending on your area and what you're allowed to carry, because it is double-edged, which a lot of places don't allow. But here's the way I think that they are okay. If you live in a place, an environment where there's lots of violence, maybe your neighborhood's really bad, maybe the area you're in has lots of problems outside. I'm not telling anybody to go outside and get yourself into an issue, but if something's happening outside and you need to go out there and you know it's not a gun situation, you know, maybe a fist fight, maybe whatever, you know, or you just need to stop something from happening, whatever. I don't know. I can just think of so many situations I've been into that brass knuckles were used. I've even had them used against myself. So I would say that they can be used in certain scenarios where the cops are not going to be called, if that makes sense. And maybe even some work environments where you're dealing with, you know, hostile people that are surrounding the area or coming there or whatever. Like I said, it depends on the legality and everything. But when you're in your own home and it's out in your yard or your property or whatever, you know, there's some gray areas. And most of the fights that I've seen, there was never no cops. You know, no cops were ever called, ever showed up or anything. Not unless if somebody was shot or something. And even then, a lot of times they don't. But anyways, next thing is tactical pens. I say no to tactical pens. Tactical pens I think is stupid. I do not like, I understand like if you're not able to carry anything else, it's cool to have something. I get it. I get it. But for practical use, it's not, I don't think it's a good idea. I think they're just way too skinny, way too thin, way too easy to slip out of your hand, you know, and just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of them. Now, granted, I think it's cool to have tactical pens for other reasons, you know, but not necessarily self-defense. If you watch the channel often, then you know I love quality materials and solid mechanics on all of my EDC gear. And this is why I'm psyched to have Big Idea Designs back as today's sponsor. This is the bolt action baseline pen. For a low price of only 65 bones, you can get this CNC machined pen in titanium, copper, or brass. The clip is adjustable and deep carry. I replaced the titanium clip on mine with a Timascus version, which actually made Kara steal it. If you like affordable without skipping the quality, then check out the baseline pen from Big Idea Designs. Links are down in the description. Pepper spray. Pepper spray I think is great. But the downside is that, oh, and I want to say one other thing about brass knuckles. But the downside to pepper spray is that like 15% of the population is not affected by it. So when only 15% of the population is affected, it does make it to where, you know, you have a good chance that when you go to use it, it's not going to be effective. I actually ran into this situation myself where a cop maced a guy and the guy took it like a champ. I mean, like he had like nothing happened. And the officers that were surrounding the guy got maced too, because it was like a cloud. Like it wasn't like just one of those streams. It was like a cloud one, almost like bear spray or something. And it hit all the other officers and they're all coughing and spitting and, you know, mucus coming out of their face and cussing. They're about to fist fight. And this guy's just standing there like nothing happened to him. So that does happen. So now I will say that if you're going to carry pepper spray, because I do think it is a great deterrent, you know, when you're in a situation where maybe the person doesn't need to be killed, but maybe it's a situation where you just need to end a threat or somebody that could potentially become very dangerous. You just need to take the heat out of them. Pepper spray can work. Just make sure you're getting stuff that's effective and has a good, I forget what it's called, but there's levels. There's levels of which they're very weak, and then there's very strong. Get one that's reputable. Back to the knuckles really quick. So one thing with knuckles, if you are going to have them, make sure they're thick, they're wide. You don't want skinny ones. Skinny ones will hurt you in many cases way worse than the person you're hitting. They slide, they move all around. You want something that actually has a good fist pack in it, that actually has nice big bulges, because you typically use the front of your knuckles when you hit with them. You're not using this. A lot of people think you lay them across right here. You can, but they're, you know, intended right here in the front. So the impact goes straight into your arm like this. So when you hit, the impact goes this way to your elbow. So it's not twisting and everything all around. But just, consider that, they're not all made equally. And in many cases, you could wind up getting hurt more than hurting the other person. Make sure you have a good, comfortable pair. If you're going to use something like that, like I said, I don't think it's the most practical, but it can be depending on where you're at. I've seen them used and I've seen them work. So next thing is, so this goes back into personal self-defense now, something I would carry. So like a tire thumper or something, right? Tire thumper in a car is legal. They can't stop you from carrying it. It's for hitting your tires, and it's basically like a small bat. I think that that's good, especially if you're dealing with somebody maybe that, has a knife or something like that. Obviously, if you can get away from a situation, get the hell out. Get the hell out of there. Get away. Don't get into a fight. You don't have to, but you don't always get to choose that. So I think a thumper can be really good. You can break limbs very easily, smash skulls, break teeth and jaws, and get pretty nasty. What I like the most, aside from the air gun, like I said, is a knife. I think a knife is really good because of these couple reasons. One, in many cases, a person, when you're being attacked, they're going to grab you. You're going to be like in close quarters with them. Now, if they're shooting at you or something like that, obviously you either shoot back or you got to run. You got to get, like those type of situations. But a lot of times, man, they're on top of you, trying to rip you out of a car. Like I've had some crazy situations happen. I one time I opened up my door, somebody was knocking, and a guy punched me in the jaw, this biker guy. I wound up going after him with a hammer. But like just weird situations happen. You always want to be prepared for the abnormal, right? And that might be you getting into your car and, somebody fighting you to get in there with you, something like that. So I think having something that can get somebody who's grabbing you, pulling you, especially somebody who's maybe not strong. So me and Tim from TKEL designed the FLN, which is designed to go right here in the front of your belt. Now, this is the second version. It's coming very soon, like very, very soon. They're almost completely finished. Well, the first batch, we have multiple different batches dropping, but we got it down pat now. So the original one we did, we had some issues with, and it wasn't exactly what we were wanting. The second version is beyond what we wanted. This is perfect. So what we did was we got a very deep hollow grind on there. This one's just a prototype. The actual final versions are even thinner. It's a very deep hollow, and it is absolutely nasty. Because of that deep hollow, this tip is way more precision oriented. So when it hooks into something, it basically just pulls it in. So you just do a slap of the wrist, even just a light tap is going to be absolutely life-threatening to whatever you hit. That doesn't really even matter the body part.
I'm gonna do forward grip in case you draw from here, and I'm just gonna come straight across. We're gonna see what happens to his brachial. You got me? Yep. Here we are. Oh, Jared. I didn't know it was gonna do that. Oh my FELON goodness. Look, TKEL knife shirt. Hey, the American flag stayed intact. Corduroy shirt. 7 layers of saran wrap and a thick pork loin. Are you kidding me, camera wife?
With one stroke. I
don't even know. I did not think it was gonna do that good. Look, there's some Fred on there.
An arm, a hand. It's going to end the fight very quickly because it's going to be so nasty and devastating that they're not going to be able to continue to fight if they even survive. So, like I said, the FLN from TKEL Knives, me and TKEL designed this to be used in the hands that aren't technically prepared for fighting, if that makes sense, like where you're not going to need a lot of training. You just need to get it out and anybody can go like this, right? So it makes it where anybody can carry it. Now, obviously, if you're good with a knife, it's going to be even crazier, but it also can be retrieved for either hand. So if this hand's caught up, you can get it out with this hand, right? So it makes it to where it's easily concealable in a spot that's hard to stop you from getting, because when it's being right here, it's very difficult to stop me from grabbing it, right? Because like even if you grab my arm, I can still get to it. So it's very, very difficult from stopping you no matter what from touching your belt buckle. If you can touch your belt buckle, you can get the knife. So that's one that I really like, obviously. But I also like a lot of other T-Cal knives. Like there's the one that Bob DeMarco designed with T-Cal, the Agent, which is also really good. This one's double-edged. T-Cal has a lot of other really good knives that are concealable and just absolutely badass. One of my favorites, well, this one is the Pakal one. So you use it in the gas station knife fighting grip or the Pakal grip, which does, you know, which you got to decide kind of what grip you're going to probably want to use the most. You know, obviously train and stuff, but I really like the Night Stalker too. This one's cool because it's a nice little drop point. This one has the double edge. But I say that whatever knife you have, if you're going to carry a self-defense knife for this particular purpose, choose whether or not you're going to use it for other things. If you're going to not use it for anything but self-defense or a life-threatening situation, then don't use it, because then, you know, you don't want to make it dull. Know how to sharpen. Now, if you're going to carry a knife that you want to use and you're not good at sharpening, carry two. Carry a folder in your pocket and then carry your self-defense knife in a position where you're never going to use it, you know, unless if it's in that situation. And I say that just because you'd hate to start using your self-defense knife as your box opener and stuff like that, and then when shit hits the fan, your knife is dull. So either one, know how to sharpen. That's the most important. Know how to sharpen. Or two, don't carry it for regular stuff. But that is the beauty of carrying a knife, you know, and why I also love it, because you can use it for so many things. It's a multi-tool, and obviously it can do damage when necessary, but it can also be a life-saving tool, or even just a convenience tool. Punch daggers. Punch daggers are really good. This is from ShivWorks. ShivWorks, I think, is great. ShivWorks has their Clinch Pick 2.0. This one's double-edged. It goes in the same spot as like the FLN, right in front of your belt. Very easy to prevent you from grabbing. They have a lot of different style knives from ShivWorks. Then we have Venerable. I think it's Venerable. Venerable knife and tool. This is like a little kind of like an ice pick. These guys are pretty cool too. Met them at Blade Show. We got Armis. Armis, most of these I've brought up are 100% USA made, except for the ShivWorks. But this is the Armis. Now the Armis comes in, and what's cool about the Armis is you can put this in any direction, which I really like. And you see how it's got that hook? So you get your hand under there, get it right into action, or the opposite way. And then they have big and small versions of it. These are really cool. And obviously carry it, or choose to carry it where it's going to be comfortable for you, whether it's in the pocket, in front of the belt, whatever. One thing I will recommend staying away from is cheap knives. Cheap knives, while they could work and be effective, in most cases, there's problems. One, heat treatment. Heat treatment means the blade could just snap out of nowhere. Two, the sheath probably will suck. And if the sheath is not good, you're not going to carry it. The sheath is just as important as the knife itself for a fixed blade. So I say stay away from these gas station knife style fighting knives, because they're not going to work for you. It's probably going to fail you, and it'll probably be to your detriment trying to use it. So I say stay away from these guys. If you want to go budget, if you're on a budget, Kershaw has a couple decent ones. But again, the cheaper you go, the less likely your edge is going to be very sharp. It'll probably have a burr on it, you know, and then the sheath's probably going to suck and so on. Kershaw has some decent ones. Cold Steel has some decent ones. This is a double-edged dagger from Cold Steel, kind of like a boot knife. But you also got the Kaiser Harpoon. This one's pretty cool. You got a nice cap off spot there. Another cool budget one is this neck knife from CRKT. It's, you know, designed obviously to be like a tiger claw, and it has a handle that's very comfortable, you know, to hold in this grip, you know, for poking and slashing, but also very difficult to get out of your hand. So, you know, it's not going to be easy to get this out of your hand, and you just hit with this area and it'll bring whatever you hit right into the edge. And you can carry it in the pocket or, you know, on the belt if you wanted to. We're gonna talk about folders though. So one thing, I do think that my folding knife design is a phenomenal knife for this reason. It has this recurve with the secondary tip that when smacked into something, it is kind of like the hawkbill where it pulls itself in and it's just nasty going through. Then you have the harpoon, which is really good for poking. And then because it's a tanto, it's going to be a very big opening. So this is really good. And with a frame lock, a titanium frame lock, when you wrap your hands around it, you actually make the lock stronger so it can't fail. Then I put jimping in all the right spots. Literally every spot where your hand's going to make contact so that you can't slip up this thing. This thing is locked in regardless of what grip you have it in. But there's a lot of other folding knives that I would recommend, like the Spyderco Manix XL or Spyderco PM2. These have very reliable, strong locks, and the blades are great for these things. They come with grippy handles. They have little finger guards, so you're not going to slip up. And like I said, very easy to one hand open and close, because that's another thing. If you're going to get a folding knife, make sure it's a folding knife that you can rapidly open. And you know, the more things you have to do, the less likely you're going to be using it. Hogue or Benchmade's really good. They use crossbar locks, which are very strong locking systems. This is the Trauma, and the Trauma also has a belt cutting tool, a glass breaker, and a spot for an air tank. So, or oxygen tank, I should say. So I think those are great options. Another one, OTF. OTF's good because it's very rapidly deployed, and if it fails on you, you just flick your wrist really quick and it's, you know, it's ready to go. And if it did fail, right now, if it was out of battery like that, all you do is smack it forward and it's ready. So that can make it to where it's once it's locked open, it's ready for action. It's strong in that grip. You have a neutral grip, so you can use it in the reverse or forward grip. If you're going to use knives in the forward grip, bring your pinky around the back. Make sure you're pinching it off back there just a little bit so that it can't slide up, you know, especially for certain types of grips. Those are things that you just train and practice. And like I said, doing that is important. Train, practice, keep yourself educated and using the tools and practice taking them out and stuff like that if it's going to be your self-defense tool. Another cheap one that I actually do like, a lot of people might not agree with me on this, the Elementum gravity knife or button lock. Now this one's not the conventional button lock, so this one has a disc that goes behind there, so it's way stronger than a regular button lock, but it's locked closed and open. So what you do is you push the button and just swing it out. You can swing it out in basically any fashion. You're just using gravity, basically. And once it's locked open, it's very strong, very solid. But what I like about it is this round end you can use to poke. You can use gas station knife fighting grip. And in the reverse grip, I like to go edge out, not edge in. Some people like to go edge in for this reason. I like to go edge out because if somebody tried to, if my knife was facing this way and they could see the spine, all somebody's got to do is just grab my hand right here and they can push my blade right into me. If it's like this, they can't do that. And when I'm punching or hitting, I can cut at the same time. And then another thing, which is one of the biggest reasons, when you hit and you hit pressure, it's going against the stop pin. This direction, it's going against the lock. So if the lock fails, you're going to be in some deep shit. So that's why, like I said, fixed blades are always the best. Even if we go over here, like the SOCOM Elite from Microtech, I think this is a great option. You got a glass breaker on the back. And remember, we're talking about specifically like a human self-defense situation, not like a dog attack or a rolled over car and you got to cut the seat belt or something like that where you're saving somebody, which I do think that those are all self-defense situations too, or preserving life, you know, trying to save somebody. And a glass breaker is always good to have, you know, and that's one tool that I don't think is bad on a knife. What I don't like is when they have 101 tools or a bunch of other tools. Microtech makes a very reliable USA made knife. It is a liner lock, so you're wrapping your hand around. It's not going to make it stronger, but these things are super tough. I beat the hell out of this thing. Super thick blade stock with a very thin edge, which typically I wouldn't want something with a thick blade stock, but these are designed for, you know, being tactical. So really good in the hand. You know, you're locked in. You got a very pokey tip. You got a very thin edge for slashing and a reliable knife. And then another thing with the real SOCOM Elite, when you take it out of the pocket, unlike, say, most knives, you go tip up and you put the blade against the seam of your pants, because then it can't open up, right? Because it's pushed against the seam of your pants. With the SOCOM, it's the opposite way. Why? Well, the reason why is because it's such a big knife. So what you do is you get your finger underneath. Once you got it, as you pull it out, if you look, my thumb is already in contact with the thumb stud. So I do not have to go like this, bring it out, and now climb up the knife and then get it out. So it's a lot more rapid deployment when you get it out of the pocket for this size of a knife. Harsey folders, I think, are really good. The only thing is I would recommend getting a regrind like on mine. So I guess I wouldn't recommend it because it is very thick. Unless you know how to sharpen it and lower back your edge angle. Cold steels. Cold steels use the triad lock. So if you're going to use a folding knife, cold steel's a really good one because it's like one of the most durable, reliable locking systems on the market. And then this one is from Medford. This is the USMC Fighter. So this is basically paying homage to K-Bar. It is a fighting knife, technically. You got a little attitude adjuster back there made out of titanium. It is titanium frame lock, so when you squeeze it, you are making it stronger. These are very expensive knives, but I think a lot of people, you know, when you're buying a knife for these purposes, I think, you know, it's not a bad idea to spend a little bit more, but you don't have to. There's a ton of great reliable knives. You know, Kershaw makes some great out the side autos from launch that are USA made. They're also very reliable, very strong locking systems. And there's a ton of great stuff. I'll have all the dealers linked down in the description where you can find all of this stuff. You know, you just put in one of the names I mentioned, like Spyderco, Kershaw, or whatever. And then I'll put other companies down there like TKL and so on. Now, what was the last thing? There was one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, so I think and I know this is like, well, that's not technically a weapon. I've already mentioned 3 weapons, right? Air gun, your knife, and then possibly like a small bat or a tire thumper. But 2 things. 1, your hands, man. Your hands, right? Most situations, not even most, all situations, you're going to be using your hands. So it's good to use your hands. It's good to know how to use your hands. Can you throw a punch? Can you throw a hook? Can you block? Do you know how to snap? You know, like I've seen so many people that would be considered a tough guy that have no idea how to throw a punch. Like have no idea when you watch them, whether they're boxing or throwing hands with which somebody punching a punching bag is nothing compared to like watching somebody spar box. But when you watch and they look uncoordinated, that's not good. That's not good. It's definitely something that will get you into a bad situation, especially, you know, in a situation where you need to use your hands, because you might not have to go to a weapon. And then even if you do have to go to a weapon, you're probably still going to use your hands either way. So I think it's good to have your hands prepared, you know how to use them, at least to some extent, train a little bit, you know, get into some sticky situations, get yourself with your heart going and your adrenaline going. And, you know, when you train in situations where your adrenaline's going and everything, it can definitely give you a different perspective on how things are going to go. When you're out of breath, you're sweaty, you're hot, you know, your heart rate's going, you can barely breathe, you're shaking. just high stress situations. It's good to try to go through so that it's less stressful for you if you do get into a situation. And then the last thing is friends and family, man. Having the people around you that I personally like, having people around me that I trust, right? That I trust will have my back. So if I am going into a place, environment, or whatever, I try to go with people that I trust, you know, with my life. People that I know would defend me, people I know aren't going to turn their back and run on me, and people that'll stand 10 toes down with me. And that to me is very important. I mean, I think that's probably the most important. Now, obviously, you have to go places alone, right, all the time, which, you know, and in home situations, you're obviously alone and stuff like that. But having a good group of people around you that are also, you know, have that fighting mindset to some extent, I think is really good and beneficial to you and them. Because then at least you're all in the same mindset if something does happen. You don't have to doubt, wonder, or worry. Like, what are you going to do when shit hits the fan? All right, you're going to leave me hanging, right? So having other alternatives, I think, are great. You know, like I said, even pepper spray, like I said, it's such a great deterrent. Lots of things can be a great deterrent. But knowing how to use your hands, knowing how to use a knife is really good, because a knife can be used in so many situations, you know, not even just self-defense, you know, just, you know, convenience, like I said before. But, and then, like I said, the air guns, man, if you're a felon, air guns are great because they're nasty. So there you guys go. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.